All right, McKenna. Looking at this lesson on law of radicals, there's really three chunks to this. The first one's very short. There's only two questions about it. And I already sent you a message with some examples. So as long as these radical signs, the third root and the third root, as long as these match, you can multiply the numbers together like normal. 5 times 6 is 30, and put it underneath the same sign. Square root and square root, they match. 3 times 5 is 15 under the same sign. Same thing here. The whole number 4 and the whole number 7 were just regular old numbers. We can multiply those like regular old numbers. 7 times 4 is 28, and that's the answer. Okay, so that's the first two, 2 and 4. Numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there's a bunch of them here that are similar. And I'm going to switch over to my document camera to talk about these. But let me write this down here quick. 5, 6, 3. Okay. So with these questions, you're not being asked to solve it. That is backwards. How about that? There we go. That's better. So we're not being asked to solve this. That's not what we're being asked to do. It's kind of like how 1/2, you could write that as 50%. It means the same thing. It's just a different way of writing it. Sometimes it's better as a fraction. Sometimes it's better as a percent. It just depends on what you're doing. This is what's called a radical sign. That's why it's called the law of radicals. But this checkbox thing is called a radical sign. And there's a different way of writing the same thing. Not solving it, just writing it differently. And here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to draw an arrow here because it's not really equals. We're not solving it. I'm just writing it differently. I'm going to keep the variable the same. And I'm going to have a fraction in the exponent. And the way you write the fraction is whatever number's on the outside, that's the denominator of the fraction. And whatever number's on the inside, that's the numerator. So the answer is x to the 3/5 power. And so you'll notice in Odyssey where down here, there's some fractions. So you'll drag x over here, and then you'll find the 3/5 exponent. I think it's somewhere over here, and drag that over. You won't necessarily use all three boxes, and that's okay. And that's how you'll do number 6. So you'll do number 7. So we'll do number 8. I do want to mention, though, one little thing. So I'm going to write the general thing here. So if you have any numbers in those two spots, I've got M and N right now. The inside number goes in the numerator, and the outside number goes in the denominator. So that's the general formula. Here's one example. What I do want to point out is if you have something like, I don't know, I'm going to use Y, something like this, where there are no numbers. For whatever reason, if there's no number here, it's like a little 2. But we don't write the 2. So a square root has this invisible 2. So if there's no number there, it's like an invisible 2. So that is the outside number 2. If there's no number on the inside, it's like an invisible 1. For whatever reason, we don't put a 1 there. And for whatever reason, we don't put a 2 there when we're writing it. But there should be. There should be a 2 there, and there should be a 1 there. So those are the times when there's like an invisible number. There's an invisible 1 there. There's an invisible 2 there. So if you don't see a number in either of those spots, there's like a 1 and a 2. Okay. So there's a bunch of questions that ask you to rewrite this. Oh, there you go. That's kind of like one that I just did. Rewrite this with a fraction. I also want to look at the other direction. So like number 10 here. Actually, I'm going to use number 11. So this is asking you to put the fraction back into a radical sign. So this is Q to the 3 over 2 to the 3 halves, q to the 3/2. Okay, so if we're going to put that back into this radical sign, whatever's on the bottom, that goes on the outside, and whatever's on the top, that goes on the inside. So the variable stays the same. The top number goes on the inside. And then we should put a 2 here because that's what's on the bottom. However, if you go back here, none of these have a little 2 because that's the invisible one. So even though there should be a 2 right there, we don't write it like that. We write it without a number. I don't have a good answer for that of why. We just don't. So 2 doesn't get a number. So if you have a 2 in the denominator, if there should be a 2 there, that's that invisible 2 that I was just talking about. So it'd be the square root of x cubed. So most of these questions, 5 through 12, are just rewriting it, either with a fraction, or if it's already a fraction, putting it back into the radical. The third chunk is the least amount of work because we're going to use a calculator. So 13, 14, 15, 16 all look like this. These are calculator questions. If you have a calculator like this at home, you can use that. If you don't, your phone calculator is really going to struggle with this. So I have a different recommendation. If you open a new tab and you Google Desmos, you're going to get the option of a graphing calculator or a scientific calculator. Go with a scientific calculator. So Desmos, the scientific calculator. And this is going to be like my blue calculator that I just showed. So we're going to type this in. It was, let's see, parentheses, -27 parentheses to the 2/3 power. Okay. So I'm going to do, I have to get rid of this somehow. Move it. Can I move it? Move it over here. Okay. So parentheses, -27 parentheses, and it was to the power of 2/3. And here, this button, this AB, that means to the power of, and then we're going to do 2 over 3. So you could use this fraction button, and that works. You can do 2 over 3. You can also just type, and you can't see me typing, but 2/3, 2 divided by 3. And you'll see right here, there's the answer, 9. So for all these questions, 13, 14, 15, and 16, you can type that into this Desmos calculator. It's just going to spit out the answer. Okay, let me know if you're not sure what I just did, how to use this calculator, or if you have more questions about any of these ones in particular, especially with those invisible numbers. Let me know and I can help you with those too.